read too many books. Hello Bookworm family, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Danny. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell because I'm posting lots of new content all the time. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, please be sure to do that. It is at _dancing_bookworm. I post on there full book reviews and bookish content. So it is time, my friends, for my May wrap-up, and I am proud to say in the month of May, I read 19 books. 19! Okay, I thought I read 20, and then I counted and it was only 19, so it was a little disappointing because I really thought I made it to 20, but 19 books! That is the most I have ever read in a single month, and it is all thanks to Believeathon. So shout out to Gav at How to Train Your Gavin because it inspired me to read so much more than I normally would have read in a month. So out of those books, we're gonna jump right into the stats because, yeah. It's gonna be a long video. So, out of those books, I read 3 realistic contemporary, 8 sci-fi fantasy, 1 nonfiction memoir, and 7 other. I read 3 children's, 14 middle grade, 1 young adult, 1 new adult, and no adult books. It was a middle grade month, you guys. It was all about Believeathon. For format, I read 14 paperbacks, 1 hardcover, 0 ebooks, 4 audiobooks, 0 graphic novels, and 0 other. And for ratings, I had 1 1-star, 0 2-star, 4 3-star, 12 4-star, and 2 5-star. It was the month of it almost was there to be a 5-star, but one thing held it back. It was like the true month of that, you guys. But yeah, 19 books. So unfortunately, from the TBR video that you guys saw last month, there were a couple that I did not get to. So I'll talk about those first. The first one was Sun by Lois Lowry. This is the 4th book in the Giver Quartet, and this is about a person who has been used her whole life to be a vessel in which she gives birth to children, but she's not allowed to keep the children, and she gives birth to a son, and then they decide that they don't want her anymore, so she is on a mission to go find her son. I didn't get to this because it was one of the last books that I was going to read in the month, and it was just really chunky. I'd already read a lot of chunker books, and I just didn't want to get to another one, and also I'm not super enjoying the books that aren't The Giver. Like, the other 2 books that I've read so far in the series are just not my jam, so I wasn't really ready to read this one. And the other one that I did not read was Star Shepard by Dan Herring and Marcy Kate Connolly. This book sounded really good originally, and the cover is absolutely stunning, and I do want to read this at some point, but again, I kind of saved this till the end, and it was for a reading challenge that I had found a different prompt that filled it, and I was still determined to read this, but I just didn't get around to it kind of thing. So I did read other books that weren't on my TBR, but by the time I got to this one and realized that I hadn't read it, I just didn't really care enough to, so hopefully I'll be able to fit it in to another month. But anyway, that brings us to the books that I did read this month. And you guys, I can't even begin to explain how fantastic some of these books were. I mean, to have 12 4-star books in 1 month, that's mind-blowing to me. But anyway, let's just jump into the books because otherwise we're going to be here all day. If you guys needed a drink or like anything, you can pause the video, go get a drink, maybe a snack, because we're about to jump into a whole lot of book reviews and I understand. Alright, so the very first book that I read in the month of May was Night Lights by Lorena Alvarez. This is a graphic novel, and it is about Sandy, who has like these night lights come down upon her, and she captures them, and they turn into like these soothing little creatures that she can play with until the next morning. And when the next morning comes and the creature's gone, she draws them to have them in her memory forever. I did use this for my TBR prompt for a graphic novel, and this was a 4 out of 5-star book for me. This was absolutely gorgeous, and I loved the plot twist in this and how much it connects to how we tell our kids that the things they learn in school do matter. I mean, this is absolutely beautiful. I can't even begin to tell you how gorgeous this artwork is. And the whole book was just really, really beautifully done with the overall moral of the things you learn in school are important. So this was a 4 out of 5 star for me, and I do want to continue on with the series because it is finally a graphic novel that I have enjoyed. There's only really been a couple graphic novels in my life that I have enjoyed reading, and this was one of them. So the next book that I read in the month of May was Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kaysen. This is a new adult-ish memoir, and it is about a 18-year-old or 19-year-old, she's one or the other, I think she's 18 in this, Susanna Kaysen, who was admitted to a mental health facility because she attempted to kill herself, and while she's there, she is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. However, she starts to bond with the girls in the facility, and she starts to see things that are right that the facility is doing, but also many things that they are doing wrong. This book also takes place in 1967, so it is a bit of historical as well, and I do enjoy that. And I read this for my TBR prompt for a new adult book, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I have loved the movie Girl Interrupted for forever since I saw it for the first time, and it's one of the few movies that talk about borderline personality disorder, which is the mental health disorder that I have, and it is fantastic to see that represented. However, some of the things in the book talking about BPD I didn't quite agree with, but I do see that people see it from all different perspectives, and it was nice to read a different perspective, and I do like how this was much more realistic than the over-dramatized version of the movie. However, I still love the movie because, I mean, like, Angelina Jolie, so. So the next book that I read in the month of May, I actually listened to on audiobook, but I also have the physical copy as well, but I didn't actually read the physical copy, I just read the audiobook, and that is Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This is the first book in the Little House on the Prairie series, and this is about Laura, like, the author, like, is telling her childhood memoirs, but I think they're more fictitious. I don't think they're memoirish. I think they're more fictional. But this is about Laura, and she's a little girl growing up in the 1800s, and she is surrounded by a wooded area where there are dangerous animals. However, she's kind of just living her simple prairie life with her family, and all she really wants is a doll. She is finally given the doll, and she is ecstatic over the moon and wants to prove that she's responsible enough to take care of it, and she wants to prove that she's responsible enough for a lot of things, but she still is a little girl and she's still learning. So it kind of doesn't really have like a huge overall plot moral, but it is more of an introduction to the characters for the rest of the series. And this didn't have a TBR prompt, but I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy it, and I am looking forward to reading the rest of the series, which I just got from Thrift Books, and I thought this was cute. I'm interested to read more. I know, like, Little House on the Prairie isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I did really enjoy watching the TV show when I was younger. Like, my grandma made me watch it, and my mom made me watch it a lot, so I do really enjoy the TV show, so I'm interested to see how the rest of the book series goes, because I know the TV show got intense towards their older years, so we'll see if it gets intense in the book series as well. The next book that I read in the month of May is Messenger by Lois Lowry. This is the third book in the Giver series, and this one is specifically about Maddie, who we met in the second book of Gathering Blue, which took me forever to figure out because it had been forever since I had read Gathering Blue. But basically, he wants to be the town messenger. He thinks he's made for that duty, but he also discovers a power within him, and he doesn't know how to handle it really. So he is actually asked to go on a very important mission because people in the town are trading aspects of themselves for objects and items, and the town is kind of losing itself. So Maddie is asked to go kind of retrieve somebody who can help the town, but also can help kind of just give closure to the person who has been helping raise him. And it's a very interesting book. I did this was for the one-word titled prompt for my TBR raffle at the time, and I did give it 4 out of 5 stars. However, reading these books are just a lot of a letdown compared to The Giver, and this had a very sad ending that I was not expecting, and it just kind of really threw me for a loop, and it didn't really follow the science fiction elements of The Giver that I liked so much. It really started pushing fantasy more, and I don't know, it just wasn't anything that, like, I felt a personal connection to, but I did appreciate the writing, and that's why I got 4 stars. The next book that I read in the month of May is Can Adults Become Human Too by Jim Benton. This is book number 5 of the Dear Dumb Diary series, and this was a reread for me. I have read all the Dear Dumb Diary books from back when I was a wee one in like 6th grade. This is about Jamie Kelly, who has a personal private diary that you're not supposed to read, but obviously you are anyway, and her aunt gets a job at her school, and suddenly she sees all these adults kind of changing personalities because of her aunt. Like, they're becoming happier and friendlier, and she's getting off easier with the principal, and she thinks something's going on, but she can't figure out what. And this was for my TBR prompt of a newest purchase. Even though it's kind of beat up, I did get this in a thrift book kind of haul, where I got a bundle of books that were middle grade chapter book levels, and this is one of the books that came in it. I did only give this a 3 out of 5 stars because I did love these series so much as a kid, but reading them again as an adult, I realized how sassy Jamie is, and, like, I wouldn't put these in my kid's hand because I know my niece, and even though she's not quite old enough for this book yet, she would read this and start talking like the girl, and, like, that's not okay. She doesn't need help being sassier, so I did think it was, like, slightly inappropriate the way she was talking to adults, and also the things she was saying in her diary, even though it's supposed to be personal and private. Like, Jim Benton, you pushed some lines there. So I did only give this a 3 out of 5 star, but it does not take away from any of the nostalgia I have from reading this as a kid. I absolutely loved these books, and I know that there are other kids out there who would love them too, so for sure it's definitely a good read if you are in that age group. But holy cow, the sass, the frass, the sassafras. So the next book that I read in the month of May is The Book Wanderers, which is the first book in the Pages and Company series by Anna James. If you are in the UK, this actually goes by Tilly and the Book Wanderers, but it is still the same book, and this was a new read for me. This is about Tilly, who, her mother has been gone for a long time. She just kind of suddenly disappeared one day, and Tilly doesn't really know what happened, so she chooses to kind of be a loner and keep to herself and just read books. However, one day the book characters start coming out of the books and also start taking her to their realms. When Tilly tells her grandfather about this, she finds out she is from a long line of book wanderers, and she can travel into books as long as she can make it out before the ending of the book. Now she goes and she trains in becoming a book wanderer, but she can't help shaking the feeling that book wandering has something to do with her mother's disappearance, and she will stop at nothing to get her mother back. So this didn't have a TBR prompt for me. This is just one that I really wanted to read and could not wait to read, and I'm so glad I did. This ended up being a 5-star book for me. I want to know why I'm not a book wanderer. Like, for real. Where is my book wandering skills? Because I read in enough stores and libraries that I should be a book wanderer, and I want to know why it can't happen. This had such a fantastic world building, which I normally don't care about in books, but it was needed for this. Like, it talked about books that I had not read before, and I knew exactly what was happening. And it was so beautifully done. I cannot wait to continue on with the series. I am so pumped. Next book that I read in the month of May was a reread for me, and it is The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. I listened to this on audiobook because it was read by Neil Patrick Harris himself, so I thought that was really cool. But I did read this, I believe, last year for the first time, but I just wanted a refresher because I wanted to finish the series this month, which, spoiler alert, I do, so that's awesome. But this is about Carter, who has been living with his con artist uncle for as long as he can remember, and he's tired of it, and he is sick of being a thief, so he decides to jump a train and go anywhere the train is taking him. He ends up in the town of Mineral Wells, where there is a carnival going on, and he is offered a spot to join the carnival and kind of use his magic, which his uncle has taught him, like sleight of hand magic, to help the carnival workers improve their lifestyle, which is just the same thing that his uncle was doing. However, he is getting so desperate for a place to stay and food to eat that he is considering the offer when he runs into Mr. Vernon, who happens to be a magician himself. Mr. Vernon introduces him to a group of young kids who also want to be magicians, and they form the group The Magic Misfits to help kind of solve some problems that are going on at the carnival. So this book is, I just love this book, and it was for my LGBTQ plus rep book because, for my TBR, because the girl that Carter befriends, Mr. Vernon, is married to another guy who they call the other Mr. Vernon in it, which is really cute. And it does represent a family who has an adopted daughter and 2 fathers, and I absolutely love that. You don't see that enough in middle grade, so I am so happy that it is represented. Kudos Neil Patrick Harris, and he was the perfect guy to write this book. This book was fantastic. Obviously, I don't think there's like an author out there that I'm like, you weren't the perfect person to write this book. I guess maybe sometimes when I like a concept of a book but not the writing. But I mean, this book was Neil Patrick Harris to a T. I could see him playing the characters in like the movie adaptation of this book, and I absolutely loved it. And again, this book was a 4-star for me because it is just adorable, just so cute, so simple, and it just warmed my heart. Alright guys, bad news bears. The next book that I have that I read in the month of May was my 1-star read of the month. This is only the second 1-star that I've given out the entire year, but it was that rough that it is Out of the Wild Night by Blue Balliet. Now, I bought this book, I want to say 2 Mother's Days ago. I went to my niece's Mother's Day party at her school because her mom couldn't make it, so I went as the representative mom. And they were also having her book fair that day, so her and I went and picked up some books, and this is one of the books that I picked up. Now, at the time, it sounded really interesting, but I also had a baby with me because I had the baby because I couldn't leave her. And then I also had Ava, so it was kind of crazy when I was picking out books. And for some reason, I picked up this book thinking it sounded really good, and then it just stayed on my shelf because I realized it didn't sound that good. So I don't know why I got it, but I did. So this is about a ghost named Mary whose house is about to be destroyed, and if it gets destroyed, she's destroyed. She will not be alive anymore in her ghostly state. Not that she's alive, she's just in a ghostly state, whatever. So she enlists the help of a group of kids who are also passionate about keeping the town the way it is and not destroying these homes that are historical and stuff like that. However, there is a mysterious boating accident in October beforehand, and they're having a really hard time convincing people that the town doesn't need change. People are still mourning the loss of the people who were lost on that boat, and they are having a really hard time communicating with these people to kind of make them understand why they need to save these historical landmarks. Anywho, that summary I gave was probably better than the book, so if you thought that summary sucked, I try not to say bad things about books. I really, really do. But this was for my TBR prompt of a cozy read. So what I wanted was to lay in my bed under a big blanket with some candles and read a cute little ghost story. I started reading this physically and could not focus for more than a page or 2. So I turned it on audio, and my mind would wander and drift because the writing was just so stiff and so formal, and it didn't help the character any, it just made it stiff and formal. So it didn't help me read the book or enjoy the characters more. So I kind of went rogue and did an audio / physical and would just bop back and forth between the two and did some skimming in there as well. I didn't like skim the book, like I listened to the whole book on audio, but when I didn't understand parts, I would skim back through physically. So I don't really know what happened in this book. I just know I didn't like it. At the very end, there is a giant plot twist that is supposed to be like, and I was just kind of like, you saved the best part for now when I have 10 pages left. So yeah, that was frustrating, and not saying that you shouldn't save the best part for when there's 10 pages left. Like, yeah, like leave us on a cliffhanger, that's great, but give me something before that, especially when it's a 300 page book. It's 291 pages, so almost 300 pages. Yeah, this was a 1-star. I don't recommend it. I mean, if you're really into ghost stories, I guess you could read it and maybe you'll like it better than me, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, the next book that I read in the month of May is Ballet Shoes by Noelle Streatfeild. This book was absolutely a gem. I loved reading it. It is about 3 orphans who are adopted as sisters, and they vow to make their names make history. So when they are invited to go to an arts school while they're where they'll learn acting, dancing, and singing. They are like headstrong about becoming big in the industry to eventually be the first famous actress in a history book. However, the middle sister is not interested in any sort of performing. The eldest sister is only interested in acting, and the youngest sister's heart is so into dance that she can't think about anything else. They kind of all end up going their different ways, but ultimately come back together to make these vows consistently that they will be in history books, and it's a very sweet, adorable read. This was for my TBR prompt for a work-related book because I am a dance instructor, so I read this because ballet, dance, you know, same thing. And I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. I thought that this was just charming. It was charming. I had seen the movie before, and it was pretty closely accurate to the movie. If you guys haven't seen the movie, it stars Emma Watson, so you should see it because everything with Emma Watson's amazing. But it is really well done, and I just really enjoyed it. And I think what I enjoyed about it the most is that it really highlighted child acting careers and child performance careers, because this took place in 1930s in London, and they were only allowed to work for 2.5 hours. And now kids can work for 6 hours, and on top of that they have to do 6 hours of school. And these kids were doing like 2 hours of work, 6 hours of school, a couple hours of chores, a walk, like normal kid stuff as well, and they were getting burnt out like crazy. And I think that that's such a good look at things now, because now we're like, oh, you're just kids, you can handle it, like school isn't that hard, all you're doing is standing on stage and reading some lines, like that's not that hard. These kids can work like up to 6 hours with like, I think they have to have like a break in there or something like that, like 2 breaks within the 6 hours, and then they also have to do 6 hours worth of school and whatever else they have time to do at that point. That is crazy. That is too much work for kids. So I liked how this highlighted that, because you don't see that a lot. And I'm very impressed with how this was done in the 1930s and showed kids getting overwhelmed by the performance industry, and that's gotten even harder today. So I think this is a great book to read. The next book that I read in the month of May is The Fran with Four Brains. This is the 6th book in the Franny K. Stein Mad Scientist series by Jim Benton. This is about Franny, who is overwhelmed with all of her extracurricular activities, and all she wants to do is focus on her science, but her mom says that she needs to do these extracurriculars, so she invents 3 robots to take her place at each activity, and the robots get kind of carried away. I read this book with my niece, and it was just super cute. We both got really into it. We thought it was funny and fun, and I really enjoyed reading it with her. I did give it a 4 out of 5 star, even though it wasn't my most favorite read of the year. I super appreciated how much my niece loved it, and I think that it is a really well done middle grade. This didn't have any TBR prompt with it. It was just one that she had picked out that she thought sounded fun to read together, so. The next book that I read in the month of May was a book Scavenger by Jennifer Chambliss Burtman, and this is about Emily, who moves to San Francisco where her favorite author lives. However, her favorite author has been shot, and she discovers his next big game. So this author, who's also a publisher, has made this game series called Book Scavenger, and basically it's like geocaching with books. You leave clues online, people go find it, you earn points based on what you have found, etc., etc. The guy gets shot, and she thinks that she has stumbled upon his next big game. So it is a very cool book. I want book scavenging to be real. I think that would be awesome. And this didn't have a TBR prompt. This was for my Believe-a-thon for Read a Book with Yellow on the cover, but it didn't have a TBR prompt. But I did give this 4 stars because I just really wanted book scavenging to be real. Like, I enjoyed it. The thing that I didn't really enjoy were the characters. Like, Emily and her friend were kind of annoying. But, I mean, it was still pretty cool. Like, the plot, the overall concept, very interesting. I don't know if I would continue on with the series, but this book by itself was really good, and it doesn't even really need a continuation. It could have been a really good standalone, so I don't know how good the series is, but I think it would be very interesting to read on more. The next book that I read in the month of May is The Flame of Olympus, which is the first book in the Pegasus series by Kate O'Hearn. This was recommended to me by one of my dancers who insisted that I read it, and she thought that I would love it, and I was really hesitant because it's a Pegasus, so I was like, unicorns, Pegasus, not really my cup of tea, but I actually really enjoyed it. So this is about Emily, who in the middle of a thunderstorm hears a loud crash on her roof, and she goes upstairs, and Pegasus from Hercules is on her roof, and the Pegasus is very, very injured, so she has to help heal it. The only way she can do that is by enlisting the help of a boy, Joel, who is the school bully, to kind of get her to be able to fix the Pegasus. However, as they're trying to get Pegasus home to Olympus to stop this giant war that's going on in New York City with Naiads, which are like beast four-arm creatures that have come to attack looking for Pegasus, and she's trying to get him home, and she can't because they need to find somebody who has the Flame of Olympus in their heart, and she doesn't know where to start looking for that. So she runs into Diana, the goddess, as well. It was very interesting. I read a lot of mythology in high school because I took Latin class, and it was one of the main things we focused on. So it was very interesting to read this, and this didn't really have a TBR prompt other than I read it for Believe-a-thon, but it did end up being a 3 out of 5 star book for me. I didn't expect it to be that high, honestly. I thought I was gonna really hate this, and I read it in a day, so I mean, it held my interest for a pretty long time, which was impressive. And yeah, I think I might read the second book. I don't know, but I'd be interested to see. It left on a really big cliffhanger. Like, one problem was not solved by the end of the book, so now I really want to know how it was solved, but I also just want my dancer to tell me, but also I want to know because I want to read the book, but I don't want to read the book, so I'm at a crossroads. I have so many series that I need to finish that wanting to finish series right now is the worst. But also, I feel like I'm setting such a bad example for my dancer if I'm like, just tell me what it's about, please. So the next book that I read in the month of May is The Second Story, which is the second Magic Misfits book by Neil Patrick Harris. And this is specifically about Layla, who is the daughter of Mr. Vernon and the other Vernon that I talked about from the first book. And she was adopted when she was a kid, and she has a lot of horrible memories from the orphanage that she was in. So when a psychic comes to town and knows one of her deepest, darkest secrets, she instantly believes that the psychic is real. And she is easily blinded by the psychic's predictions and kindness, where her friends are a little bit more hesitant because they've seen some bad stuff in Mineral Wells already, and they don't trust any newcomers. So this book was really cute. This was my favorite of the Magic Misfits book, and it scored a very high 4 out of 5 stars for me. It didn't have a TBR prompt. I just wanted to finish reading the series this month. But yeah, this was my favorite of the series. I love Layla. I think she's my favorite character in the series, and I really enjoy her like escape artistry because it's so much about her. Like, for the longest time she just wanted to escape the orphanage she was in, and it's such a good symbol of who she is as a character. And again, Neil Patrick Harris did a fantastic job with this book. So the next book that I read in the month of May is The Parent Trap by Eric Kastner. I'm sure you guys have heard of The Parent Trap before, which is a Disney movie where two girls swap places in order to get their parents back together. That movie was based very much on this book, which original title I believe is Lottie and Lisa. However, that translation I guess is really hard to read, so people suggest that you read the straight up Parent Trap translation, which was pretty easy and also wonderful to read. I read this in one night, well past when I already needed to be asleep, and absolutely fell in love with it. This is an amazing book. But this is about Lottie and Luis, who meet at summer camp, and they realize they have the same face. They instantly start hating each other just because of this fact, but after spending a little bit more time together, they discover that they are actually separated twin sisters. So they decide to swap places, going back to the other parent that they have not met before in order to try to get their parents and family back together. This was for the TBR prompt Disney adapted, so a book that Disney has adapted into a movie, and I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. It was adorable. I loved everything about it, and it brought me back to those childhood memories of sitting with my aunt and my grandma watching The Parent Trap, so it was absolutely wonderful to read. The only major difference between this and the movies is that this takes place in 1949, which is when the book was written, and also takes place in Munich and Vienna instead of of the United States. So the next book that I read is The Minor Third, which is the third book in the Magic Misfits series by Neil Patrick Harris. This is the last book that's currently out. However, the fourth book is coming out this year. But this one revolves around Theo, who is one of the Magic Misfits who specializes in levitating. And he has a really hard time living up to the expectations of his family and friends. So when his friends start fighting, he decides that it's time to take a closer look at his family life. He also develops his first crush, and his crush is kind of gearing him more towards following his music. Even though music isn't his passion and magic is, it's the only thing that seems to be making sense at the time, so he decides to go along with that path. However, there is a ventriloquist that is in the area that is Danger Danger Will Robinson, and they are determined to take him down. However, Theo is not really on board with all of their plans and doesn't think that some of the things are being well thought through, so he wants his voice to be heard, but it's constantly being stepped over by the other kids because he is one of the nicer ones. So just a lot of conflicts are occurring and friendship fights and feuds, and it's a very stressful environment for Theo and the other Magic Misfits. So this is really getting to some of the climax of the series, and this book actually ended really sad, which I was surprised about, but I really can't wait for the fourth book because it ended on such a bummer that I want to see how the bummer gets fixed, because Neil Patrick Harris needs to fix the sadness. This did not have a TBR prompt, but again, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. However, compared to the other ones, this was a very low 4-star. It was actually very close to being a 3-star. I just don't like the character of Theo. He's too prim and proper for me, and he doesn't use contractions in his sentences, which is also annoying to read, but I just don't really enjoy his characterization very much. It's not like a character that I normally would like reading about. So this was my least favorite in the series so far. I also didn't feel like the plot was very driven. It was just a lot of argument and conflict, and the plot didn't really set in until the end. So not my favorite, but still overall good. I love the Magic Misfits books, so 4 stars is fitting. It was just a very low 4-star. The next books I'm going to talk about are actually 2 of them, and I'm going to talk about them simultaneously because they are very similar in how I thought about them. But this is I Survived the Sinking of the Titanic 1912 by Lauren Tarshish, and this is I Survived the Shark Attacks of 1916 by Lauren Tarshish. So this one specifically revolves around George, who is aboard the Titanic when it starts sinking. However, he has been off causing chaos and mischief, and he is now separated from his family, who he is worried that he will not be able to find due to the sinking of the ship. This one is about Chet, who is new to New Jersey, and he starts a prank war with a group of boys, and the prank war gets taken too far. So when he is in the creek swimming and he discovers that there is a real life shark in the creek, and he goes to tell people, nobody believes him because he's been playing these pranks on people too frequently that nobody is really listening to him. So this book, neither of these had a TBR prompt. These are both new reads to me, and I enjoyed both of them. They are, the I Survived series I actually really enjoy just because I think it's such a great way to explain history at a middle grade level. The only thing that I wish these books had that they're kind of lacking in is more detail. I feel like the level of middle grade that they're at for kids to understand, those kids could handle a little bit more than what's given, and it's kind of watered down a little bit. But I still really enjoy learning about these historical events. I obviously know a lot about the Titanic already, but I did not even know there were real shark attacks in New Jersey. I didn't know that, so this was new information to me, and it freaked me out. But this one I gave a 4-star rating because I really enjoyed the atmosphere of being on the Titanic, and this one I gave a 3-star rating just because I didn't enjoy the atmosphere as much, but that was really the only difference. Overall, they were about the same besides just the atmosphere. So the next book that I read in the month of May was Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. This is the second book in the Hunger Games series, and I have obviously read it before. I have read the whole Hunger Games series before and love it, but this one specifically is about Katniss, who is being thrown back into the arena after just escaping the first Hunger Games she was a part of, and now she is certain that she is being sentenced to death by being brought back in, so she will do anything in her power to save Peeta. However, Peeta is also going to do anything in his power to save her, so they are kind of in like a little back and forth between who's going to save who and who's going to be the hero to the other. This one was for my TBR prompt for the chosen one trope, so she is kind of chosen to be this symbol of a rebellion that she doesn't want to be a part of. She just wants to be happy in her life with her mom and her sister, and doesn't want anything else, just to be with her mom and sister. This is a 5 out of 5 star book for me. I have read it before. I love The Hunger Games. It is one of my top series, and even though I've kind of grown out of it a little bit, I will still say that all the nostalgia and all the love that I have in my heart for it for the first time that I read it is still there. So 5 out of 5 stars for sure. And this is actually my favorite of the Hunger Game books because I love the arena with a clock. Like, it's just super cool to me. So finally, we are on the last book that I read for the month of May, and that is Oona Finds an Egg, which is the first of the Oodle Thunks series by Adele Griffin. This is a super cute middle grade series about a caveman family, and their daughter Oona really wants a pet, so when she stumbles upon an egg, she brings it home and is determined to get it to hatch into something cute. However, everybody else has a different theory that it will either hatch into something deadly, or it won't hatch at all and it's a dud egg, or it's just not even an egg at all. They think it's a fossil. But Oona is determined to make this pet her new baby, and she really, really, really wants to bring out all the happiness and all the joy that she can possibly muster in her heart. And this is super cute. This did not have a TBR prompt. I did give it 3 out of 5 stars just because I didn't super love it. I'm not like a caveman kind of person, but I thought it was adorable and fun to read, and I'm sure there are kids out there that love reading about prehistoric times, and this was cute. And the artistry was really cute too. I'll show you the picture of the baby stegosaurus, but it's very cute. So look at the baby stegosaurus. Isn't it so cute? It's so tiny. I love it. But yeah, it's a really, really cute book. I enjoyed it. It's just not something that I would read again, and I would not continue on with the series, but I thought it was cute. So there you have it, people. That was my May wrap-up. That was 19 books that I read in the month of May. I am not expecting to read that much in June, so, like, don't get your hopes up that June will be even longer, because it's not gonna be. I cannot read this much again. But I am so happy that I got through all these books, and that I had such a big, overwhelming reading month full of middle grade and humor and enjoyment just on that childhood level, because the world we are in right now, I just needed a little bit of love, and I got that through my middle grade books. So this month, for June, I'm reading a lot of books about LGBT pride, and I'm very excited for that. So I'm looking forward to June. I just don't expect to read as much as I did in May. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!
Wasn't that a great video? Clearly books make me very happy. Now you can make me happy too. Click the subscribe button to follow my channel. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you think I did good. And the notification bell will let you know when I post new content. Also, follow my Instagram for more book shenanigans.